Welcome back to another episode of On Coaching with Magness and Marcus. I'm Steve Magness, the Deputy Director of High Performance West, joined by my good friend John Marcus, the Director of High Performance West. And as always, On Coaching is sponsored by Health IQ, an insurance company that helps health-conscious people like you and I, and hopefully all you guys listening, get lower rates on their life insurance. So if you want to support us, you want to support them, go to healthiq.com/oncoaching, which will be in the show notes on both Science of Running and highperformancewest.com. Gotta be healthy.
As always as well, we give the people what they want. So we're giving away money. We got paid, so we're giving the people cash. That's right. We're giving $100 to two people. And we're also going to give you another $100 for you to do whatever you want with. Just give it away, sponsors, a little youth track and field program. Give it to a friend who needs gas money. We don't care. What we care is that you're here. You've been here since many of you day one, and as a thank you. So thank you for making a sponsor opportunity available to us, and we're going to pay it forward.
And just like we're giving the savings to you, Health IQ, the reason we partner with them is because they give savings to you for being healthy, which is what we're all about. So go check it out for a free quote, and support the pod and support the people who support the pod. And
like our good friend who is on the podcast, the best young middle distance coaches, because he still has a lot of years left in him. Danny Mackey of the Brooks Beast. Welcome, friend.
Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for having me on.
Welcome. Well, so the reason we have Danny on is because, he showed us all up as coaches. He had a great meet at the World Indoors, so we figured what better time to have Danny on, pass down some wisdom, and hopefully teach John and I a few things so that we can get up to his level.
Yes, this is a very selfish pod indeed. But all general facetiousness and sarcasm aside, what we really wanted is Danny, has since day one started the Brooks Beast from scratch. I remember that first year. You remember when you were talking about this thing happening, and to accelerate from a motley crew of some, very notable runners, but also some under the radar runners, and having transitioned, and we finally found your roots about you as a program, through many athletes, many a success, many ups and downs, and then have it culminate here with Drew Windle getting a silver medal, and as well, Katie Mackey qualifying to her first Worlds and getting top 10 in her first World Championship, at a seasoned age of, is she 30 now, Danny? Is that right?
Yeah, just turned 30, yeah.
Just turned 30, breaking the paradigm, breaking the mold, breaking what most people say. You can't be good after a certain age of 26, 27, 28. How the heck are you guys doing it in Seattle?
Well, I think I texted you guys about this a little bit because you're asking kind of what we were learning, but we were still doing the same stuff we were doing when we were a motley crew, and I literally just came out of a meeting with Matt Weiss and Steve DeCoker in terms of recruiting for 2019, and I don't see us ever not being a motley crew. I think it's part of our identity. I think that it's definitely part of Brooks's culture, and the Beasts are just an outward-facing representation of that. And so, we had I've known you guys for a while, so, Marcus, you're just up here during some of the indoor meets. Nothing's changed. We joke around about being idiots and not really knowing what we're doing. And, I think that, that essence of not taking ourselves that seriously probably, I hope, is always there. But if, that being said, if, would Drew have, medaled and Katie Katie's been on our team for a while, so, there was some, slight evolutions and adjustments that have definitely been made each year. And if I'm fortunate enough to be doing it for a while, I would imagine that, I'll look back on 18 and say, man, I don't know how the heck Drew pulled that off, because Drew did some weird things. A lot of it too goes to the athletes. I mean, I had to present yesterday to the executive team and the board at Brooks, and they asked me, like, well, when did Drew make a breakthrough? And I said, well, he really didn't. Like, he ran 147. He ran 148 his senior year in college, but he'd won 147, 146 for his junior year, and so he'd run 48. His first year with us, he ran 145.5 and he won 2 invites, but then he got knocked out in the first round of USA's, and he was cooked. I mean, I remember. We went to do like an all-comers meet in Seattle, and he could barely break 50, and his body was fried. And so then going into year 2, which was 2017, one of the KPIs that we worked on was just consistency with volume and consistency with workouts. I can't remember who I was listening to yesterday. It was Nick Simmons' like movie that's coming out. It was like, he just said someone asked him, like, what was that workout? Nick's like, I was a B. And he goes, but B? He goes, that's all I want to do, because I don't need A's. I don't need to dig that hole, And so we withdrew in 2017. That was the big thing, was consistency, because I didn't really want to add anything more into his program, because the bottom fell out in the summer of 16. But I just figured if we had continuity, that'd be enough stimulus. And so then we saw like the results of that. Like, he got 5th indoors in the K, and then he opened up with a 145 flat, and then he made the team with a 144.9, and he won the York Track Town Summer to the 144.6 and 144.75. And then he got 11th at World Championships and just missed out in the final. So there was like nothing really like big there. It just was a little bit better every time. And so we worked on a couple, like really just one mechanical thing, and then I wanted a little bit, his like speed endurance a little better, and that's kind of all we did this fall and winter. And, if you look at his opener at UW where he PR'd in the K, but he led start to finish. And so that's one thing that people probably wouldn't notice, because I think we all fall victim to confirmation bias. So like people look at Drew and they're like, oh, he comes from behind. No, that's not true, because his PR at Tracktown, he led. He won that race. And then he led the K wire to wire at UW, and he PR'd with a 220. And then he came back with a 48.3 quarter. And that's with like very limited work. And then he went to Millrose around 145.5, which is 3rd fastest all time. He kind of came from the back and got 3rd. And so that was like the first time where we had talked about it before indoors about medaling possibly outdoors or indoors. Like that's been in our mind, but we knew that, like you have to, like Donovan Brazier, Clayton Murphy, Boris Varian, Eric Sawinski, Kaz Loxon. I mean, these are guys that are like, am I missing somebody? I probably am. I mean, that's just a stat. That's like a final, right?
Yeah. I mean, indoors, like those are some good people, and there's more. Like, American mill distance running is deep.
Super deep. And so and even at the USA's, there are some things that he did interesting. And so he wired to wire on Clayton Murphy. I mean, that's a scary dude to lead the entire race, because Clayton's thing is a kick. He's strong. And so he wired to wire, took Clayton out of the meet, to not advance. And then, when he made the team, how he came off the workouts after the USA indoors, he just looked really good. And when we were going into the meet, we were like, well, like you can, we talked specifically a little bit about winning. Like you can win this meet. Like you're not scared of Carrera, not scared of Brazier, not scared of Schott, so we kind of went through the list, but we also like, man, getting through the rounds of, I don't know why I coached 8 and 15. It's so damn stressful. Like I like,
amen. Yeah. Amen. Amen.
So like, Drew showed that he advanced on time, but he ran the fastest time in U.S. history at a world meet to advance. And so, I mean, there was no big thing that's a long-winded way to say there wasn't a big thing where Drew just got a lot better, like in the season. It was just, he got a little bit better, and then he just has been consistent at that level. And then what I would hope and he'll have, probably a little bit one-off performance in terms of a PR or a time or something like that's a little bit step up this summer. But, I think if you're doing things like a normal, healthy, right way, that's probably how it's going to go. Like how if they're just going to get a little better every year. So
right, it's just refining. Would you say the craft or refining your execution? Like, talk to me a little bit about that. You sent Steve and I a text that really made me think. You were like, well, the difference is the people on the podium just have more refinement of execution than the people who, didn't even make the meet or were in the back of the pack in the final. And you equate it to like a black belt versus a blue belt. I mean, but that was really profound insight, I thought, because a lot of times we think that those podium people are on a whole nother planet. And obviously, like you're saying and testifying here with Drew, that's not the case. He just got better at getting better.
Yeah, I use it now because I do mixed martial arts. I do jiu-jitsu. And so what's interesting about jiu-jitsu or any part of grappling, or any part of martial art, I'm assuming, is like a black belt will train with a white belt. So white belts, for those who don't know, is like that's the beginners. It's like you're just new at it. And then there's different degrees of belts and stuff like that. So you change colors as you advance. And so running kind of similar. Like you could go on a run with you can go on a run with Drew. Like I ran with Drew actually 2 days before his race. Like him and I did an 8-mile run at like 6:50 pace or something like that. And so I could probably do some tempo runs with him. And then when Drew gets into a race where he's running a K or an 800, he has like a certain strategy. And so with like the jiu-jitsu analogy, like I was talking about an arm bar. Like if you're practicing, if a white belt or blue belt gets an arm bar on you, like the mechanics are the same, but there's from a naked eye, but there's a subtle things in tension and like just like the position of your center of mass and like how you're using all your limbs in sequence and the timing of it. It's just subtle enough where like once it's put on, you're not going to get it off. Whereas if a white belt does it, okay, it's the same, but you can maybe shake yourself off of it. And so when we were thinking about the race, I just told Drew, I was like, listen, you've been races from the front, you've been ones from the back, you've done ones from the middle. I was like, the moves are, we know at 400 meters, probably in a final, it's probably going to be moderately slow because no one wants to be a rabbit because Carrera and Brazier sadly couldn't even race, and Brazier got knocked out in the first round, then DQ'd. So we didn't see a front runner in there. And so everybody's going to just really it's going to happen. You're going to see it at the fastest 150. And so the difference at the elite level is there's going to be when you watch Shot, he knew, I hadn't said this to Drew yet, but I watched Shot race and I was like, that dude deserved to win that race. He just painted that picture perfectly. And he started to put himself in position to move at 400 because of their thing 55. And so he took the lead at 400 because he knew that it was going to, a tenth of a second would matter when you're in first or sixth. He didn't want to leave it down to spotting somebody at. And that happens at the high school level, that move. If it's slow at 400, people are going to see the split and the 8 guys are going to go, or the women are going to go. But what it separates the expert or world-class person is they anticipate it and they start to position themselves right away before they let others dictate it. And so that's
would you say it's almost reflexive or instinctual at that point? Or not? I mean, I'm curious.
No, I don't think so. I think there is there is a little bit of a, no, I just think if you're using back that analogy a black belt, they've just been there so many times. So Shot
can sense it.
You almost you hear, I think of when people get into a flow of a basketball game or a soccer game, it slows down for them.
Yep.
Everybody at World, there's 16,000 people there, there's 6 in the final, they're going through slow, it's super congested. Shot was in the back the whole time so you could see it in front of him. And, in my opinion, he controlled the race from 6th place the first quarter.
Yep.
And then he knew that what was going to happen. So he's everybody's going to move when they see that split. So I'm going to move before they do because I've seen this movie before. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're there with Dan Paff right now, Marcus, at Altus. I had to laugh because I was at the London Diamond League 2 years ago with Dan, and we were going to watch the men's 3K, and an infamous athlete was in there. So Dan goes, I was like, you want to watch this? He goes, I've seen this movie before. I've seen this movie a million times. So, I think like, I don't know if there's probably, I guess it could be likened to instinct, but I think the reason why I kind of hesitated on that is because, like, I think if my cat has instincts, that there's not like a conscious, thought behind it. They just do it. Like, shot me, like, what's going to happen. I'm going to predict it and stay in front of it. I'm going to now. And in Drew's behalf, like, we knew that it was going to be an ugly race. And we knew that, well, I shouldn't say we knew. We had a strong assumption that, at 200 meters, because I've seen the movie enough times, I was like, between a regular meet and a global championship or USA's is when that 200 meter mark goes, people are going to get emotional. And that's going to take over. And I was like, you let them go for the knockout punch for 200, you just wait. Just cover it enough where you don't lose contact, but just let them punch each other out, and then you move the last 100. So if you watch Drew's race, like, everybody jumps at the 200 to go because they're going for that medal. And Drew just waited, covered it, and then he started chopping away at them when they're medal peak. And so, but like I said, we know that it's just such a refined thing. That analogy more, I think, goes to Katie in the 3K where she hesitated a little bit when the gap started, when Stefan blew by her. I think Stefan ran like an 8-second 100, like somewhere in the middle of the race. It just like went from last to first, and I was like, holy shit. But like Katie could have gotten away with hesitating at any other meet when that move happened. And then I told her, like, when that happens, you gotta go. You gotta get attached to it. She didn't. She hesitated for a second. Then people got in front of her, and then she ended up having to run like a 4:13, 1500 by herself, but there's no way she's going to catch those girls. And so that's where there's like a refinement where like once she saw that, she should have known, like, this is how this movie's going to play out. And I can't afford to like dig myself out of a hole, that I could put myself in another competition because they're just too good.
Right. So there's a lot of good points there and a lot to unpack here. I'm curious though, like on this whole, is it conscious or is it reflexive? How do you go about like coaching that skill beyond the fact of having them be in enough races where they understand and see that movie in enough different directions, right? What are the key points or key distinctions to coach that? Is it a talking through it? Is it a putting them in situations? What does it look like?
I would say that, like, just because, Drew gets second place in a race, like, I wouldn't, hang your hat on my, I don't know.
Yeah.
But what I did with Drew, was, I wanted to make his world small, and so we did some breathing exercises during workouts. And what I wanted him to do was say, because I think Drew does have his good vision of a race, and he has a right mix of impulse control and aggression. And so if I feel like if he could trust himself, that was going to be really advantageous. And so when we got to UK, we were doing some 200s at like 25 second pace. And I was like, told him to be breathing in and breathing out slowly and counting and just get a count of his steps. And so the reason why I was doing that with him was because I wanted him to know that if he could hone into his breathing and get an idea of his cadence, he didn't need to see a split to understand that like the pace was fast or slow. Like he can kind of use his own body as a gauge. And I think that like would help with peace of mind, and so then he could see things happening more quickly and be able to, in his case, they defend people off because everyone's cutting them off. And so I think it's really hard to defend people off if you're frantic. With Katie, we actually like, she's at a very emotional, she's on the probably the high end. Her impulse control is not great, but her advantage is she is very like, she's very aggressive. Like, I was talking to a coaching friend and they're like, man, Katie, like all the chips are down. Like you see it in a race, like she's in, like, like she's going to a place that's going to hurt, and she's going to make somebody else run through her to get that spot. And so, with her, we went through actual like intervals on the track where 600s that were cutting down. And I was like, and I usually don't coach this way, but I was like, this is exactly what's going to happen in a race. I don't talk in like absolutes.
Yeah.
You can even
Right.
So like, I was like, Katie, this is what's going to happen. It's going to go 36, 33, 29. And I think she actually closed in 135 in Albuquerque, but it was close enough. And so I said, if you can run 29 seconds, you're going to get top 2. Don't worry about it. And so we just practiced like how that felt. So when everybody else around her was doing crazy shit, she's like, all I got to do is run 29. Same time. So,
Right.
the different ways you can do it in workouts. But both of those, I'd say that the similarity in both of those cases is I was putting their mind into a spot where they were visualizing the race while they're actually running. So then when we talk about it at the World Championships or US Championships, I said, hey, remember we're at the track 3 days ago? We did that breathing. So like, let's do that the first 200 and then see where you stack up in the race. And if you're here, if you're in 5th, stay there. If you're not in 5th, you need to like, or if you're in 6th, like try to move up on the outside shoulder. And so they've been there a little bit in their mind that way. And I think a lot of times athletes, the problem with too much overcoaching and with making it too rigid is they just don't trust themselves. And even Katie, like, I just want them to believe that they're going to make the right decision. I don't want them to second guess anything when they're out there.
Well, that's interesting you say that, Danny, because you have a master's degree in right exercise phys, and so you're coming at it from this kind of scientific lens. But what you just said, I heard no discussion or justification about doing this work to enhance this aerobic metabolism or this type of alactic output or power or blah, 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 right? I mean, it's important that the science is sound and the justification from that space has integrity. But yet, in the moment dealing with the person, readying the person for the environmental crucible, or the emotional crucible, which is the championship racing environment, you're readying them so it becomes a familiar space rather than saying, hey, run this split because it's going to enhance your, anaerobic threshold by however many, moles or whatever, right?
Yeah, so that's an interesting point. So I think like, I would say that,
or has that foundation already been laid beforehand so that they kind of have awareness of why physiologically they're doing that workout and they just inherently trust, or they don't care and they just trust you and they say, hey coach, I want to get ready for the race?
Well, I think, in both, if we're talking about those two, I think what makes one of the things that make them good is, and this is scary for me, is they really trust me. They trust me more than I trust myself. And I'm very serious. Like, Drew was his first year here 3 years ago. We have year-end debriefs, and I'm like a very diplomatic person. I think so. And so as coaching I am, I'm like, hey, well, what do you guys want to do? And Drew, the first thing he said, he goes, hey coach, I came here to run for you and be coached by you. So when I ask you like what you want me to do, I just want you to tell me. Like that's why I'm here. Like just take more charge. All right. So, and Katie also has just been like, just telling me what to do. And so that's scary because when you get keys to like a Ferrari, it's like you're like, oh shit, man. Like now I have responsibility if things don't go well. And so you feel bad and all these other things. So, I would say that like they both do have that where they're like just telling what to do, but they're really intelligent and they could very easily, coach and do that. And, there was a few instances for both of them, where there was some training things we did. Like Katie did a fairly unique med ball circuit, the day before her race. This is at USA's. Like if you would have gone out to our pre-race track, you'd have been like, what is Katie doing? Because she felt really bad in her pre-race. And I was like, this might help with potentiation and hormones, so we're gonna do this. And she's like, okay, so we're gonna do it. And then with Drew, we adjusted, 10 days out, he did a fairly abnormal workout, for him. And so, 9 days out. He did a little bit of an abnormal workout here in Seattle before we're getting ready to Worlds, and one that we've never done before. And there was like a physical reason that we do that. And so there's a lot of blending with both of them. But I think that, like, yeah, for me, I was thinking of another MMA analogy. So I got to meet Greg Jackson when I was in Albuquerque for a couple hours, and so he's coached the most world MMA champions compared to any other coach. He's had, I think, like 4 or 5 UFC champions alone. And so he says that, like, he tries to get his athletes ready to take away the other fighters' teddy bears. And I thought about that as myself, like, as a coach, and I think this probably applies to other coaches if they self-reflect. Like, what is our like, what's the thing we hold on to that we want to have to keep us safe? And a lot of coaches, I was this way more so, and I know Steve has talked about this before in the blog, but, like, we want to be very rigid and say, okay, these are the workouts that you need. This is a menu. You're going to do A, B, C, and D, and then you can do those, and then you're going to run fast. And so that's kind of my, like, default brain, where I like to make it a math equation, and like, this is what we do. And so I've tried to go away from that, keep that there to some degree, but go away from that a little bit. And there's times where, just because that feels safe to me as a coach, I got to get outside that comfort zone and, like, have these really vague, subjective conversations with Drew about tactics and psychology and breathing. Like, that's not what I'm used to. And that's more what I'm doing leading into those races. Like, I was getting, like, in my mind, a very physically prepared athletes ready to fight. And how they're going to do that is, like, can they execute quickly and not second guess themselves?
So one of the things that I think is important to understand here, you mentioned the Katie doing the med ball circuit and the potentiation. And, like, when I hear that story and hear the other story on Drew doing different workout, like, this is a credit to you as a coach, developing the tools in your toolbox to have options when something is slightly off, right? And, like, what people don't know behind that potentiation story, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I was on an email chain with you and Garrett Samford, and for, like, 2 months we were discussing the research on potentiation, and then you at some point were like, oh, I tried this circuit on these people and they had this reaction. So you'd, like, done the background, you've done the testing, and then you have this tool in your toolbox to pull out in case something is, not going as smoothly as you want, right?
Yeah, that's happened. And I think that both those instances are, like, I only get to take, like, partial credit, because the first thing is I need to be talking to Gareth and you, who are smart and understand science. And so you guys are like, hey, this is what we've noticed. Like, this is interesting. And so, I have, like, friends that are smarter than me in this area. And then the second thing is, like, and I didn't say this to begin with, it is scary when athletes trust you, but I mean, I hope that everybody listening, and you guys definitely know this, like, when an athlete believes in you, it's like, man, it is, like, inspiring. Like, it totally makes me a better coach when somebody's like, just tell me what you want me to do. And you're like, man, as much as I believe in you, you believe in me, and I'm going to, like, bring my A game as a coach. And so they both, like, Drew and Katie, like, both challenge me that way. But it's like I think coaches sometimes, like, don't really appreciate, like, how much an athlete can really pull that out of them. It's so much better than working with somebody that's critiquing everything and finding a flaw in everything and every system and would do this better, just critique, like, that's not fun.
Oh yeah, it's a privilege, actually. It's a privilege to have that degree of trust, because it's a vulnerability. It's, you're putting, your career in some regards as a coach into their hands, and they're putting their career as an athlete into your hands. So it's a reciprocation of vulnerability, and you have to have trust, otherwise it is a zero-sum game and no one wins. And if trust is broken or trust is not strong, I don't know how it can be done. I've rarely seen successful coach-athlete relationships, at least at the professional level, and even the higher scholastic levels, high school and college, where that trust is not absolute. For people who have enjoyed long-term success.
Yeah, I think the key to what you said is long-term success. I think neat. Like the really good ones, man, they can be in a shitstorm and still pull stuff out. Like, it's crazy, some of the stories I hear. I'll see some athlete have, like, success for a season, and then I'll hear about their, like, coaching relationship or their sponsor relationship. I'm like, how the heck did you do that? I mean, that's amazing. And so, but yeah, if you're looking over, like, an 8-year, 5-year, 3-year career, like, even probably, like, 3 or 4 years, like, once it starts getting to 3 or 4 years, you gotta have that, like, very, safe and trusting and positive relationship. And again, we forget that we are working with athletes too, and they're co-workers, and they can help us get our A game going too.
Yeah, it's a co-creation, and that's like what I appreciate about you, Danny, is like you see that front and center. You're co-creating this reality that is this athlete performing at a world-class level. And, that's why it's interesting because, we talk about Drew and Katie, but obviously you have a spectrum of athletes on your charge, and you coached a bunch of, and nourished and developed a bunch of athletes before them that have enjoyed short-term or long-term success as well. And, but specifically like honing back on Drew, working backwards, all right, finishes 5th at Albuquerque at USA's in the 1K. A transition happened. Something happened. Whether it was instant or over the course of months. But I remember seeing Drew at that meet, talking to you, things were, I forget if he was sick or he had some injury issues or what have you. But he was a different man come outdoors. And then he, went from being 5th in the 1K at an indoor championship, making a world team, getting through a round. And now here we are a whole year later from 5th 1K USA's, 2nd in World 800.
Well, I think that there's a part of that. There's an interesting dynamic that people probably don't see is like, so in that race where he got 5th at USA's, Kidder was got 2nd and he outkicked Andrew Weeding and Robbie Andrews. And so Brandon Kidder's his teammate, right? Yeah. And then Kidder opens up outdoors, he leads out. And then indoors that year before Kaz left the beast, Kaz was number 1 in the world in the 800. And so that starts setting a table for Drew. I mean, he's seeing that firsthand. And then you go to the season there was some, I think the transformation is he just started learning, he's kind of faking it before he makes it. He knew, he's looking at these guys I'm as good or better than them. I think on the guy side, the guys look at each other as, well, I'm as good as them. And they start behaving in that way and they start pulling each other, the best version of each other up because, we have 5 guys in the team, all 5 of them hit world standards. But, we're 5 for 5, and all 5 of them PR'd here. Isaac has the number 1 time in the U.S. in the mile right now. I think he's number 3 or 4 in the world. Kidder, gamed out and paced Cheserette, and the next morning he runs the world standard. Henry PR'd by 3 seconds in the mile. And, that's his teammates. I don't think it's by default that you have a guy, and then you have Garrett Heath, who's just consistent as can be. And not even really on his A game indoors, and he still gets 6, and he's in the hunt leading with 400 to go. And I don't think it's by default that those are the 4 guys that he trains with on a regular basis, and that's how they're doing. And so they have a big part in another way of saying it is if those guys aren't his teammates, Drew doesn't get 2nd. I don't think. Yeah, and maybe make the final, but I don't think he goes in with this edgy confidence and have it be sincere where he's not insecure. Without those guys being around him, lifting him up when, in between days. I think he gets fit. I wasn't at Atlanta when the race you're talking about last year outdoors. But Shaq Walker was there, a teammate, and Shaq opened up with the fastest time he ever did in 1:45.5. And so Shaq had run 1:44.9. And so Drew's I just beat that guy who's done that by a half second. And then Shaq's telling Drew, dude, you can make this team. Shaq said it to me before I did. And what does that mean when your peers you can make this team?
Right. Well, I think that's also an interesting look at team dichotomy, right? These guys aren't seeing each other necessarily as a threat, right? Someone that I don't want to run well. It's more of a challenge, right? If my teammate is running well, I can run well as well. And I think that's having coached college teams for a while, I think that's an important distinction where you can either let others kind of bring you up as well, rising tide lifts all boats, or you can like kind of see it as a threat and almost be like, oh, I don't want them to run well. And I'm going to cause kind of chaos, which you see on a lot of teams.
Yeah, before, one of the cooler things that happened this year was, Kidder, so like going into Boston, Kidder had got the world call, that weekend, yeah, so we were scrambling everybody else in the country trying to get the standard because we had 3 weeks to do it because USA was super early. So Kidder we're like figured out, okay, he's going to pitch Chaz on Friday, they're going to put a camera up at 1,500 meters, he's going to run a mile at EU on Saturday, the next morning, and that day when we decided to do it, we had like a team meeting, and I overheard Brandon trying to talk Garrett into going to Boston with him so he could get the standard too in the mile. And I was just like, that's awesome. Like that Garrett is a direct threat to Kidder. And so, but Kidder's trying to talk Garrett to come with him so he can also have the standard going into the mile. And
wow,
that's if you're Drew, those guys genuinely wanted him to do well. Like they take a lot of pride in the fact that their teammate medaled, and now they're thinking like, well, this idiot from my roommate can do it, I can do it, and so he's not doing anything special. Like it's just it's very the dichotomy is super important.
Yeah, it's almost like this idea. It sounds like, well, if he gets better, I get better. Right? And so why would I want my teammate to get better? Because that ergo means I will get better too if we're doing in a similar program with similar philosophy and similar, menu items to choose from.
Yeah, I mean, it is simple, but as you guys both know, and I'm sure a lot of people listening, it's not like that.
Yeah. But having that, I know it's simple and easy. Let's not get it wrong, but it's that complexity. It's making it that simple to get that permission and have each athlete give themselves that permission and then give their peers that permission, which is a difficult thing to do. But once that is there, once that's given, that's when special things happen. Like as you're excited and you're witnessing, it sounds like with the beasts.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm interested. We've been talking a lot about Drew. I'm interested in hearing a little bit about Katie's mentality change, or like what helped her push over that edge, right? And I know there's been some really good interviews that she's done, but from your perspective, like what was the change that got her over the hump from always barely missing teams to, forcing her way onto the team essentially?
Well, I think this is probably going to be not what you. Well, I can't remember what her interviews too much, but like, she. Well, the first thing is, yeah, she tried 13 times or something like that, but she medaled. And I'm saying this because this is what I told her the week of the race. She had medaled outdoors before, and there was no world team, but she got beat by Mary Kane, and Mary Kane was like just destroying people left and right, and Jenny Simpson. That's who beat her, and she got third. She ran 4:07, super hot day. Beat a 4-1 athlete, a 4-2 athletes, to get third. So in my mind, I'm like, that's why we run USAs every year, because that matters. She got bronze. And then indoors, the next year, she got second behind Shannon Royberry. And I told her, I was like, hey, listen, like, you've podiumed. You've gotten top 2, you've gotten top 3, so you know what to do. So one of the things that we did was, like, Katie has a very good game, and that she's developed over the last 7 years. So we just tried to strengthen that more. So she believed that she didn't really have to do a lot of things differently in order to get some of the outcome that she wanted. But, so that was kind of going back to like 5-6 years. Like, hey, you want to have 12 titles, you got, you have this nasty lethal kick, and you go to a really dark place in a race. Like, I've seen her compete for 6th place in the Diamond League before. Like, that was for the win of the gold medal. Like, she'll compete. So, like, let's just use that to your advantage. Like, we're going to do that in the race. That's what you're going to do. You have an amazing kick. We're going to use that. And the other thing and then I remind her that she's done it before. And then The other thing, one of the things she changed, and she talked about that was, and this was some conversations that with Dan Paff was just like making sure her self-talk was more on the positive side. She can be very critical, and I think partially it's just this bullshit culture that our sport has that we just talk about teams all the time. And I'm like, I don't care. Like, that is super important, but it's not the only important thing. If it was the only thing that was important, we wouldn't run the other 17 races a year. So like, let's quit talking about this as if it's the end all be all. And we know if it was the end all be all, then I'd have all my athletes switch nationalities and go run for other countries and make Olympic and world teams for that country. But that's not what so like, that's not the only thing that matters. So and it's not to ease the pressure a little bit, but it's just to give it perspective and say, well, as a professional, like, I don't know, Karl Malone didn't win a world championship as a basketball player. I still think he's one of the best power forwards ever. You know, and that might be something like basically telling her, like, you might not ever do it, but you still can have a 10-year career and have won, 40 plus races. So that eased a little bit of pressure for her. And then also letting her know who she's up against. Like, that particular race was really tough at USA because you had Shelby, who was number 1 in the world at the time. Emma just PR'd, and I think was like 7th in the world. Marielle Hall was like 4th in the world. And then Laura Paquette, had run 8:47, and then there's Katie. So like 3 of those people aren't going to make the team. And you're going to have to beat either Shelby, Emma, Laura, or Marielle. If you could do everything perfectly and end up getting 3rd and like being okay with that. And so that freedom, I think, allowed her to do what she does best. And like when there was moves made, Katie covered them. And then when shit got real, Katie did what she does, and she just she went all chips down. She just went for it. And so, I don't think you can like fake that. I think that she inherently had to believe, she had to put herself basically back where she was in 2016 when she just missed making an Olympic team, and she gave an interview and she's like, you have to 100% believe you're going to do it, knowing that like you might not, but going back to that place is scary. And so a lot of the work on her end was being willing to like allow herself to go back to that spot and know that it could be the same outcome and be really hard on her. But so yeah, that's kind of like some of the things that we worked on. And I think I texted it to you guys, like always going back to your game. Like there is a certain style in game that you have, and you don't always want to. I don't think you have to change that too much. You just want to refine it a little bit.
Yeah, that's critical. I mean, that permission that Katie gave herself to go back to something that could potentially catastrophically disappoint her. So I remember, talking with her and you after that Olympic trials, and it was like someone shot the family dog, for a little while there. I mean, it was pretty dark and pretty impressive. Because understandably, because it's the Olympics, right? Or Olympic trials, and everyone's trying out for this thing. But to have that vulnerability, to give herself that permission to go back, get back on the horse and do it all over again, when she knows very well that it is a small shot at even doing everything to the 100% of her ability and not making a team, like hats off to you and her, for teaming up and making that possible, because that's rare.
Yeah, I think she's a rare athlete, like she's like super malleable, and so that's why she's been around for, I think she's been around 7 years and going on 8, and I think that's why Dan Paff, I don't know if you tweeted this out, Marcus, but like he said something today, I think it was today in their Altus meetings, that you have to have fun. Like if you don't have fun, then there's no there's no growth that happens in the sport. And so she and Drew, they both really like their job. You don't go to altitude camp for 10 weeks and leave Seattle Casino. And so her being malleable and her really liking what she does allowed her to like go at the same story with a little bit different perspective and hoping that it would work.
Yeah, that enjoyment piece or that excitement piece, being excited about what you do, I think is one of the most underestimated and neglected parts when you become a professional, right?
Totally.
It's so easy to make it be like your job, and you have to have it. incredibly serious, and always be all that way. And like, you lose the fun out of it sometimes. And I think that's a lot of times why you see athletes who might not transition or get lost in their enjoyment of it, because they lose that and they can't, their performance suffers because of it.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I think it goes back to one of the things that we were just talking about when we started this conversation, was like being a motley crew. And I think part of that is just having sport being fun and keeping that alive, and enjoying going to work in the morning.
100%. I can relate a little bit. When I took over at Houston, like, our guys called themselves a group of misfits because we had a bunch of guys who did not look like distance runners trying to run distance. And it really kind of brought us around and, gave us an identity. And once they had an identity, they were, they kind of took control of themselves. And, the story they always tell is when they ran, I think it was 9:36 for the DMR, and none of them looked like distance runners, right? We had a couple, like 2 inner city Houston kids from, kind of ghetto high schools running, stuff, and you're just like, all right, like, let's get it done. And I think sometimes, like, just knowing what your identity is and kind of accepting that, can kind of empower athletes to reach their potential.
Yeah, I think that's, I mean, at the pro level, it's a little different. Yeah. I think because they know themselves a little bit more, but especially for people listening that are coaching high school or any high school or college, like, you don't want to, I think you don't want to change too much of that. Like, you got to kind of let athletes find their way a little bit, because once it could be frustrating, because at the pro level, I have some athletes, they're like, well, just tell me. I'm like, I can't tell you. Like, I just have a map. Like, I have a little bit of an insight on a map, and I'm just going to show you this map that we're both trying to draw. But it's not definitive. But the thing is like, once they start to figure it out on their own, then their skill set and their confidence is just so much greater. And when you get to these global championships, when there's so much in jeopardy and so much in the air, they're able to like have that expert level refinement, because they're like, well, I've done this before. If we practice this in practice, and we practice it in the invite, and then now I'm here and I'm going to do the same move, I'm just going to like execute it a little bit better than I did last time. And that belief is like something that I can't like just tell them that in words before a race and be like, hey, go do this. There's no way that's going to work when they're stressed.
Years to be callous to the unpredictability of the World Championship environment, to be callous to the adversities that one will. The warm-up procedure that she went through, I don't think was your desired warm-up procedure before that World Championship 3K, correct?
No. And also the spike broke the day before too, correct?
Yeah. So talk a little bit of that, because I mean that can throw someone off significantly. What she had to shoulder, but yet she still was able to be callous enough to show up, race, and get the job done with effect.
I think a lot of that is, I mean, from a coaching standpoint, like if we're looking at both scenarios, like she feels absolutely horrible, she can't run 3K pace for 200 before a race. That was me saying, hey, we do these potentiation and circuits in training, and how do you feel the next day? I was just like, you just feel really good. Tomorrow's no different. Like, if you feel like, let's not worry about it, because you wouldn't worry about a really hard workout if you felt crummy the day before. And so just like that, all that is like a simple reframing, and I think coaches can help with that, because we're not in it. And there needs to be a little bit of, I think, of a barrier from a coach and athlete where you don't fully immerse yourself and be confused with their stress and their frustration and their confusion. You have to be like somewhat calm, I guess, to say the least. And so with that one, I wasn't worried. Like, I just acknowledged, like, you feel like shit, that sucks. I'd much rather you feel better right now, but let's do this. We've done it before. Usually 9 times out of 10 you feel better the next day. And, I remind her, like, you're tapering a little bit, so there's even a higher chance that you're going to feel better on Saturday. And so, when we did it, she actually felt better during it. And when she was cooling down, and I said, well, hang on that. I was like, that's real. So have that be a thought. In the next 24 hours before the race. And then with the spike cracking, like, that one was, I'll be honest, I've never dealt with that one before, so I hope we never deal with it again. Like, I just tried to put on, like, a poker face when she gave me the spike, and I was like, oh, there's no problem here. And then when I went down, she took a nap, and I went down the lobby, I was kind of losing my shit. I was like, this is bad. so I was freaking out, but like, I just, I made a joke. She texted me like 2 hours later. She's like, hey, how's it going? I was like, oh, I'm just having fun. This is reliving my old Adidas days. I had to work on spikes, like, this is really fun for me. But I was really like, I hadn't eaten yet. I was like sweating through my shirt. I was running around Birmingham trying to find a lighter to melt the PU, trying to find super glue. And I was talking to other companies to see if they would lend me a pair of spikes her size. And yeah, it was crazy. But, once we got it sorted, which we never really did, we found a Canadian athlete, Gabrielle Stafford actually gave us a pair of her spikes. And, she was too big of a size for Katie, but they were like close. And so I'm sitting there like, she's going to run the world final in spikes that aren't hers that are too big. Oh, well.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well. Right. Exactly. How many people would create a defeatist narrative and just say, oh, I'm just going to get last now because my spikes are too big.
Or, on the other hand, like, what coach would freak out, transfer that to the athlete, right? And, like, then the race is done.
Yeah, it's weird. You wouldn't think that, like, because I don't necessarily think I'm, like, good at that, but, I mean, I've seen coaches lose their shit over stuff like that all the time, so maybe it's just, like, it goes back to the simple things, it's just, don't underestimate how the simple act of just, like, being calm and having a little bit of humor, what that can do. Because did it affect her? Probably. But, the next person was, like, a couple seconds in front of her, so, like, whatever, she still ran really well. Definitely could have affected her the other side running bad. She's going in there thinking, like, these are baggy on me, they're slipping, and they're too big, and there's no way that's going to help her. And so, we do, like, sometimes, I think, like, you guys can probably both attest to this. Like, when you come to our practices, they're not any different than our races. Like, we joke around a little bit, we're serious, there's a goal, there's, like, intention behind everything we do, but that carries over to races. So if she didn't have her flats or spikes for a workout, like, it wouldn't, I would have been like, no, I probably wouldn't have been, like, because she needed to get to the workout, I wouldn't have really addressed it too much. I'm like, okay, well, it is what it is. We're going to do the workout. And then after the race, I was like, what are you doing? Like, you got to bring an extra pair of spikes. Come on, are you a rookie here? And it'd be the same thing in our race, our workout. If she didn't bring an extra pair of flats or something like that, I'd probably give her a little bit of a, education, like why you need to do that. But, there's no need to make it a greater problem than it is. And she did a really good job of just being like, okay, whatever. It is what it is. I can still throw down. So.
Yeah, I think that's important to, put a pin in it. Like, it was something that was beyond her control in that moment for that time frame. You have this limiting factor of the race is starting at this point. You did all you could. You exhausted every resource, in a hurry up offense contingency, calling every audible in the book. You found the best solution you could, and it's either the best solution you could or no solution. And sometimes you have to just be okay with the best solution. Like it goes back to what I counsel athletes in races is sometimes we try to get too cute and calculate, sit there and make calculations about the best choice or the best tactic to employ as the race unfolds. But 9 times out of 10, you have to just make a decision and go with the decision. Because especially at the higher levels of sport, the race is not coming back to you. And even when you said Katie calculated a little too long or hesitated in that 3K, right? She hesitated just long enough because she just didn't make a choice. And then she found herself in that no woman's land. So it's interesting to see, some excellent execution of that. And then another contrast that within the same, 4-hour, 5-hour window, a little bit of hesitation that costs a lot. But most people, most athletes, not having the right size shoe would have cost the whole race. And Katie, despite having that hesitation, still hunkered down, sunk her teeth into it, and ran lights out last 1500, albeit no one's land, still got 8th. I mean, that's phenomenal, Danny. So, like, hats off to you and her. Like, that's not easy. Like, I mean, it's actually incredible.
Yeah, she's an interesting athlete. Like I really can't really articulate why, but I wasn't surprised. Given somebody that, I think when most people see somebody that's tried to make a team that many times and hasn't, they probably have this image of how she is, and it's probably negative, like, oh, she doesn't show up when it matters. But that's quite the opposite with her. I mean, she's one of 4 Americans to win a Diamond League, and so with her, it goes back to her game. And I said, well, it's just like, you're fucking great at championship racing. So be great at championship racing with the spike that's a little too big today. It's not that big of a deal. It's like, I don't know how much more it weighed. And so, but yeah, I'd say it's more of a tribute to her, just like trusting herself and being willing to just let it go. Yeah. That part's not, like, she can't, we talk a lot about, and you guys do too, it's simple. All you can really control is what your response is to something. And so her choice was, I am not going to make this a big deal. And that's what she controlled, and she controlled it really well.
I think that's one of the big themes that is present throughout this podcast, actually, is that control factor, right? You've talked about it in terms of responding to, adversity or mishaps, like having a shoe or spike that has an issue, but also in terms of tactics, right? Of like being in control of yourself and like trusting yourself to execute in the way that you know how to, versus almost being in that reactive way or that emotional way, which I think you stated, of just reacting to others or reacting to the 200 to go. And I think that lesson of figuring out what it is that you can control, and then having the faith and the ability to just kind of let yourself do that is an incredible lesson that comes out of this podcast to me.
Yeah, totally. It's hard to do, though. It goes back to
incredibly.
What Mark was just saying. It's like, I don't know what you said, but just because it's
just because it's simple doesn't mean it's easy.
Yeah. Because I exercised the same thing too. I was really mad. I'm like, this poor girl. These are brand new spikes. I've never seen a spike crack, and ever since doing this job, like, why does it happen now? But I like, that goes from coaching. I think I read a blog today from a college athlete where Charlotte Prouse, I don't know if you saw that blog she wrote about.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, and so like, there's like this kind of split world where it's like, hey, the athlete's the one doing it. Like, we get keys to Ferrari, and it's like you said, John, it's like a blessing to just be able to around somebody that good at what they do. And there's quite a few people that could have, you could replace me and they can do the same job, a better job for sure. But the other side of it is like, we do have a lot of influence, and I look at groups and individuals and I see their coach, and there is a lot of mirroring there. And like, if the coach is high strung or takes it too seriously, because we joke around sometimes, like when we were at altitude cap, like we were in the mountains in Albuquerque, and we had to go to the convention center, for the U.S. championships. And like, I just said something about, like, I just made a joke about driving downhill and going to run go run in a circle for a couple hours and come back. And so one of the athletes like just laughed, like, that is what we're doing. It's so stupid, It's like, I was like, yeah, a lot of people are going to come watch you do it. That's even like more ridiculous. And so that like, if I have a little bit of that in me where I'm like, hey, we can always figure this out, it's not that bad, that's where like it's useful in times like this. I think that, and I think coaches can definitely impact that, because we are, if I think that Drew's teammates are this huge impact on him for him being so successful, then why wouldn't the coach have the same influence on them? Like, you kind of are the 5 people you're closest to, right? And coaches are around their athletes 6-7 days a week. You travel with them, shoot, sometimes in the pro circuit, you're rooming with them. Like, you have to have a certain way. And it even goes to like how I talk about other groups and other coaches and how I talk to them. And, like if you're treating those people with respect and you're like, when I see another athlete from another group do really well and I celebrate that, I think that's going to carry over to the athletes. I mean, Gabrielle Stafford, like we know her a little bit and who knows if that's part of the reason why she helped Katie out.
Right. Which in our world of coaching world is sometimes not the thing that we do, right? Unfortunately, a lot of times it's put people down kind of world.
But that's what we are. Our coaches, we're shapers. So like we're shaping. Like we're constantly shaping, right? I mean, and it's a slow like shape. It's just positive feedback, critique, feedback, a joke here and there, validation, recognition, shaping their worldview, shaping how they're going to interpret adversity, how they're going to interpret pressure. I mean, I always wonder about athletes that work with a coach for less than 4 years. It's like you didn't even give the relationship a chance. Either this level, even at the scholastic level too, that just makes sense. Like 4 years is kind of the minimum, really to actually see the fruit, blossom or the flower blossom. Because there's all this re-education and shaping, not from a physical, biomotor, kinesiology, awareness, mechanical standpoint. That happens, yes, but it's just how they view and interpret everything they're doing in terms of preparation and competition. I mean, you and I have had this talk for a long time, long hours, many days, Danny. It seems like just getting people and helping them to reshape and reframe so that they can go out and do the thing that they want to do, which is compete to the highest height.
Well, it's what values are you giving, right? And I think the things that we say as coaches, the things that we praise or maybe, talk down on, like athletes pick that up. And I think if you look at Greg Popovich, right, there's a reason that, he's taken his athletes and instead of watching game film, they've watched a documentary on civil rights for practice that day, right? Because he's trying to teach them different values and really get that connection on the coach athlete and understanding the whole person level versus, just kind of going through the X's and O's and just leaving it at that.
Right. Yeah. And athletes really like that stuff too. That's what's funny about it. They enjoy that. It's not something that's going to be really hard for them to like latch onto that and have it be comfortable for them. But for some reason, we don't go there as much as we should. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's curious. Well, I'm going to be, for the first time only in our podcast, be the wrap it up button here.
Oh, man.
Usually it's Steve being like, all right, we got to wrap it up.
You're big time down there in Alta, so you got to present in a couple days.
Hey, it's a blessing. It's a total blessing. I've been learning so much in the 24 hours I've been here, and we got 48 more, and I'm looking forward to it.
You're probably scared, right? Because you're like, what am I going to teach these guys?
No, I mean, what I like is it's concurrent learning. Everyone's learning at the same time, something new. So it'll be fun. But yeah, Danny, before we do sign off, any kind of lasting or imparting thought, just, that you weren't be able to share, or an impression that you had, something you learned, maybe even just experiencing the World Championship indoor meets, this one, that either reaffirmed some perspective or gave you a new education. That you're like, man, if I hadn't gone to this meet, I would not have learned this. I mean, whether it's specific to the Beast, Katie, Drew, or just something you observed in general as a final takeaway for everyone.
Well, because we talked about a lot of stuff, so I don't want to repeat it, and I'll just go with the first thing that popped in my head when you asked me, which isn't really totally in this world, but when Drew was up there in the medal stand, because we had the DQ, which we didn't talk about, but my father-in-law was there, and he goes, hey, there's a lot of drama in the last 90 minutes. Really enjoy this. And I did. I got a little watery-eyed, and I was just so happy for Drew. And, we went out that night, and we had a great time, and it was but that's not the first time we've enjoyed like him doing well or any of the athletes doing well. And so my high school coach, Joe Mortimer, who just turned 75, he would give us little buttons, pins if we PR'd. And so if you're a high school athlete, like, shoot, you might PR like 25 times in a year, right? If you're talking cross country track, like, you're just getting better. And I had all these dang pins everywhere. He would do it every Monday with the whole team. And so I think the takeaway is, like, because I'm just talking about that, there's not that much different. It's just refinement. The game's still the same. Like having emotional control, but along the way, like enjoying Drew winning that invite a few years ago and like patting him on the back and like sincerely be like, dude, that was awesome. Like, you're a D2 guy that just won a pro invite. It was your meet, Marcus, Adrian Martinez. That was his first pro win. So
yeah, I remember.
And so I think that like that's probably the takeaway. Sometimes we just maybe don't enjoy those things enough with the athlete. And that's something I had to work on because I can be almost too stoic and not think like, nothing's a big deal. But the athletes have just made me better in that way because it's things are like, Danny, you need to like show us when you're happy. And so really encouraging them almost like you would just like a friend and being like, you did a really good job today. Like, and making it be specific in terms of the encouragement. But yeah, that's the one thing I just like, I'll look back on those competitions and, just be happy. Like, I was an idiot at USA. I like sprinted down the home stretch. I think I like almost knocked somebody over and looked me for a second, and I gave Katie a hug, and like we made a big deal out of it because it is a big deal. Like, that's awesome. That's why coaching and athletics are so fun, because they're unpredictable, and like then you're gonna suck. You might have something that sucks next 2 months, and that's okay too. And we're gonna really like cry about it and feel bad about it for a day. So just enjoying that stuff, I think, is probably the takeaway, because everybody has little successes along the way, and you don't know when it'll be your last one. But you also I think it gives the athletes a lot of motivation. It's a positive reinforcement to get to those next levels and to take those risks.
Awesome. Well, couldn't have said it any better. We'll end it there. And once again, thanks a lot, Danny, for coming on and sharing your wisdom. For those listening, thanks a lot for being listeners to all this. And again, check out our sponsor, Health IQ, at healthiq.com/oncoaching to save on life insurance if you are a runner, athlete, or anything that is active. So all good things. And you can also check out that on highperformancewest.com if you want to take advantage of the savings that we're giving, because Health IQ is awesome in helping us out. So thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you guys next week.
Thanks, guys.